Krishna devotees, thank you for your heartfelt prayers for Krishna Saki. We pray for her soul's onward journey to a better destination. Thank you. We are very honored to have amongst us in our presence Her Grace Malati Prabhu, who came all the way from New York. We are also honored to have His Grace Gaurashakti Prabhu with us. And His Grace Nityananda Pram Prabhu with us. We have devotees from Dayton, Indianapolis. And her name, Mataji? What's her name? Hemangini Mataji. Thank you. Welcome. We have devotees from Dayton, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and from many other cities coming here. And New Vrindavan, yes. We are very, if we can have the children, please quiet, someone take care of them. Thank you. We are very fortunate to have amongst us His Holiness Swami Bhagavan Swami Maharaj. So the applause tells us that he probably doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to be brief anyway. Maharaj has served for over 2 decades at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, has served sincerely Srila Prabhupada's mission in many capacities, founded the School of Bhakti, and has made Bhakti literature accessible to both newcomers and seasoned audiences alike. Last year, he accepted the vows of lifetime renunciation or sannyas, and since then, he's been traveling extensively. We're very fortunate that he chose Columbus as a stop amidst his very tight itinerary. Assisting Maharaj in his travels is His Grace Gopinath Prabhu. If you can Gopinath Prabhu also is from the manor and a very integral part of the Pandava Sena. I'm told he's a phenomenal kirtanier and an exemplary actor in the theatrical productions. So we feel very fortunate on behalf of Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, New Vrindavan, Cleveland devotees to have you amongst us, Maharaj. Thank you.
And there's also Prabhu, the son of Himati, and
all of them.
In ISKCON, even the mic stands are humble. Hare Krishna, everyone. So it's so nice to be in another place, in another part of Srila Prabhupada's transcendental family. We're so esteemed to have so many esteemed Vaishnavas amongst us today. It's a real honor. It's very humbling, very inspiring, very empowering to have them amongst us. Thank you so much. And our deep prayers for Krishnangi Sakhi Mataji to leave this world amongst the Vaishnavas where the chanting of the holy name is going on. This means that someone definitely has pleased Krishna in their life. Otherwise, to have a departure surrounded by devotees is not possible. You can't arrange these things by your own plans. But when Krishna is happy, Krishna sees how someone has served, how someone has offered their energies in devotional service, then Krishna makes all arrangements. So whenever a devotee leaves this world, it's very painful, but it's also a great cause of celebration, because we can say by Srila Prabhupada's grace, a soul has achieved a perfectional stage in their life, and this is all glories to Srila Prabhupada. And today, I don't know, I hear on different calendars it's different, but we are going with New Vrindavan calendar today. And it's the day that Srila Prabhupada arrived in America. Am I correct? Yes.
not really.
No?
September 17th.
September 7th. But I think on the lunar, yeah. Okay. 17th, yes. Yes. Yes, yes. So today we thought we would stop and remember Srila Prabhupada, his incredible journey and his incredible sacrifice to come here to the West, to deliver the most valuable gift to the world. And in this way, when we have that gratitude, in Sanskrit the word gratitude is kritagya, which means to literally know what has been done for you. So today we will reflect a little bit on Srila Prabhupada and so many great stalwart, dedicated followers of Srila Prabhupada are here. If they feel merciful, we also request them to also share some words with us. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadhaitam Savadhutam Vaijana Salitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarudhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In 1922, we know Srila Prabhupada, that time Abhay, was reluctant to go to see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He said, I have seen many sadhus, but none of them had touched his heart, none of them had moved him. And therefore he was somewhat skeptical, maybe you could say. And then of course we know his friend Narendranath convinced him, no, this saintly person, he is different. His words, his aura, his Shakti, his spiritual standing is unparalleled. And so they both went to the Ultadanka junction, that house. And on the veranda there, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was lecturing. Of course, nothing happens just by chance. It's all Krishna's arrangements. One time Srila Prabhupada was giving a lecture and he said, who knew I would come to the shelter of my Guru Maharaj? Who knew that he would tell me to come to America? Who knew that I would come here and all of you would come to me? So these are all Krishna's arrangements. We cannot understand how things are going on. So all along, a transcendental plan was conspiring. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told Srila Prabhupada, you're young, you're intelligent, why don't you spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world? He was echoing the words found in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bharata bhumile hoilo manusha janma jar janma sarthaka karikal para upakar. You've taken your birth, especially either in the land of India or if you've taken birth knowing these spiritual principles, then first thing is you should make your life fruitful. And then you should try to help as many people as possible. Of course, Srila Prabhupada gave up a little bit of a fight. He said, yes, we will spread the knowledge of Krishna, but first we have to become free from British rule. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur famously told him, Krishna consciousness is so important and so powerful that it doesn't need to wait for a change in Indian politics. Srila Prabhupada said, I was defeated, but I was happily defeated. The spiritual master's instruction can never be denied, but the spiritual master's instruction may be delayed because of situational factors. So Srila Prabhupada, 43 years later in 1965, he left India. And we know that journey that he went on. Even to this day, when we think of Srila Prabhupada all alone on Jaladuta, it makes our mind spin. Srila Prabhupada in a cargo ship, all alone, 2 heart attacks, celebrating Janmashtami at sea. He said, today the ship is flying very smoothly, but today I'm feeling separation from Sri Vrindavan and my Lord, Sri Govinda, Gopinath, Radha Damodar. He said his only solace was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita. And in this way, he said, I'm experiencing the nectarine of life. And then Srila Prabhupada arrived in America. And I thought today, let us read from His Holiness Satsvarup Maharaj's account of Srila Prabhupada arriving in America. So if you like, you can close your eyes and just imagine Srila Prabhupada on the Jaladuta, all alone, coming to America. On the 19th of September, the Jaladuta sailed into New York Harbor and docked at a Brooklyn pier at 17th Street. Srila Prabhupada saw the awesome Manhattan skyline, the Empire State Building, and, like millions of visitors and immigrants in the past, the Statue of Liberty. Srila Prabhupada was dressed appropriately for a resident of Vrindavan. He wore kantimala and a simple cotton dhoti, and he carried japamala and an old chadar. His complexion was golden, his head shaven, sika in the back, his forehead decorated with the whitish Vaishnav tilak. He wore pointed white rubber slippers, not uncommon for sadhus in India. But who in New York had ever seen or dreamed of anyone appearing like this Vaishnav? He was probably the first Vaishnav sannyasi to arrive in New York with uncompromised appearance. Of course, New Yorkers have an expertise in not giving much attention to any kind of strange new arrival. Srila Prabhupada was on his own. He had a sponsor, Mr. Agarwal, somewhere in Pennsylvania. Surely somebody would be there to greet him. Although he had little idea of what to do as he walked off the ship onto the pier, I did not know whether to turn left or right. He passed through the dockside formalities and was met by a representative from the Travelers' Aid sent by the Agarwals in Pennsylvania, who offered to take him to the Scindia ticket office in Manhattan to book his return passage to India. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We were just in New York, and His Grace Hansarupa Prabhu, the temple president there, he very kindly opened up the cabinet where Srila Prabhupada's pointed white shoes are even today. And he placed those shoes on our head, and we prayed that as Srila Prabhupada walked the world with those shoes, gracing the earth with his lotus feet, spreading Krishna Bhakti, that we can in some small way follow in his footsteps. In a beautiful book called the Madhurya Kadambini, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur addresses a question that many devotees ask. They ask the question, how is it that I ended up in Krishna consciousness and there's millions of people out there who didn't take up this process? What was the difference between us and them? How is it that all of us begun this journey, yet some people don't begin this journey? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur addresses perhaps the $64 million question. How do we even begin devotional service? Of course, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur himself gives the answer. He says, Ado Shraddha. In the beginning, you have to have faith. But then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, why is it that some people get faith or have faith, but other people don't have faith? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in a conversation with himself, gives another answer. He said, by some good fortune, someone gets the faith and someone else doesn't get the faith. Satisfied? No. The next question will be, where does that good fortune come from? So then he offers an answer. He says, maybe that good fortune comes because over many, many lifetimes you have done many good activities, many pious activities, charity, yajna, tapa, so many things. But then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, I don't think this is the answer. Because how can something material create something spiritual? So then he says, I know. The answer is that faith comes from the mercy of Krishna. Krishna is the source of everything. And therefore, naturally, the faith to begin devotional service, the seed, must come from Krishna. But then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur looks at himself and says, no, because Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshosti na priyaha. Krishna says, I am equal to everyone. I don't make distinction. I don't have envy towards anyone. So if the seed of bhakti was coming from Krishna, then everyone would have it. But everyone doesn't seem to have it. So then where is it coming from? And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, I know. It's not coming from Krishna. It's coming from the devotees of Krishna. Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula Hoya Sadhu Sang. Krishna Prema Janma Teho Punamukya Ang. Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula, the root cause of Krishna Bhakti arising within a living entity, Hoya Sadhu Sang, is the association of the devotees. The acharyas say the mercy of the devotee is like a needle, and Krishna's mercy is like the thread. So as soon as the needle pierces, then the thread follows. Of course, these kind of analogies have a lifetime, because nowadays no one does sewing so much. People don't relate to these things anymore. Maybe a few people. But it's like that. But then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, yes, correct. The mercy, the seed of devotional service, the beginning, the faith is given by a devotee. But then he says there's one more truth in the matter. There's an even deeper answer of where bhakti comes from. Does anyone know? What is it that impels the devotee to give people faith, to give others the seed of bhakti? The bhakti in their own heart. The bhakti in the heart of a devotee impels that devotee to go out in the world and give that seed of bhakti to others. And therefore, the final conclusion of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, when the question is given, where does bhakti come from? He says, bhakti creates bhakti. Srila Prabhupada was Bhakti Vedanta. Of course, in his humility, he said, I don't have any devotion. When he was on the Jaladuta, he wrote a poem. Bhakti nahi, Bedi nahi, Khub naam daro, Bhakti Vedanta naam, ebe sartha karo. In the final line of his poem, he says, Bhakti nahi, I don't have any devotion. Bedi nahi, I don't have any knowledge. Khub naam daro, but I do have strong faith in the holy name. Of course, they say the humility of the pure devotee is the reality of the conditioned soul. When Srila Prabhupada says this, it's out of his great humility, but he is giving us a great hope. Because in the morning, if we wake up and we look in the mirror and we say, Bhakti nahi, I don't have any devotion. I sing in the kirtan, I dance in the kirtan, I pretend like I'm really enthusiastic, but really, Krishna, you know in my heart, I don't have much devotion. We may look in the mirror and say, Bhakti nahi. We may look in the mirror and say, Bedi nahi, I don't have much knowledge. I may have passed my Bhakti Shastri exam, but how much realization I have of it all, I don't know. But Srila Prabhupada is reminding us, even if we don't have devotion, even if we don't have knowledge, Nam, the name will save you. Kalo, nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyatha. So Srila Prabhupada is giving us a hope that if we have faith in the holy name, then anything can happen. Miracles can happen. So Srila Prabhupada, he was full of bhakti. And because he was full of bhakti, he was able to inundate the world with bhakti, such a heart of compassion. We sometimes look at our life and we think it's difficult, it's hard to practice spiritual life. Sometimes it's even hard to live amongst devotees, isn't it? Sometimes. One devotee said to Srila Prabhupada, I just can't tolerate this devotee anymore. Prabhupada said, you have to tolerate him as I am tolerating you. So it's not so easy. There are doubts, there is difficulties, there are sometimes difficult situations that we have to encounter. But if we have a strong connection with Srila Prabhupada, if we have that deep gratitude, that no, Srila Prabhupada took so much effort to come. Srila Prabhupada took so much sacrifice, so much trouble. I must say, how can I not be grateful for what he gave to me? Then that connection will always save us. And so on days like this, it's really an opportunity for us to rededicate ourselves. When we want to show gratitude to someone, the lowest level of, or the first level of gratitude is to recognize what someone has done for you. But it said that higher than that is when you're constantly remembering what that person has done for you. But it said even higher than that is when your life is dedicated to reciprocating with what they've done for you. Some people may recognize Srila Prabhupada's sacrifice. Other people, they remember it. It's constantly on their mind. But the deepest type of gratitude is when we live our lives in such a way that it displays a reciprocation for everything that has been done for us. And so this is really the great offering that we want to give to Srila Prabhupada to show. One devotee used to say to me, maybe at the end of life, Srila Prabhupada will come to you, and then maybe he will ask you, and what did you do to spread this movement? What did you do to serve this mission? And then the devotee said to me, what will we have to report? Will we have something substantial to offer to Srila Prabhupada? We have time, we have energy. Krishna has given us life. Krishna has given us a beautiful community. And with all of this, we have the great opportunity to embody even some of Srila Prabhupada's compassion and try to share this knowledge with others. And so sometimes we think, I don't have a compassionate heart. I'm compassionate towards myself. The great devotees, they have compassion for two main reasons. The first reason great devotees have compassion is because they're constantly seeing the suffering around them. Krishna says, Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukha dosh anudarshana. If I tell you take darshan, then generally you will think that means going to the temple and taking darshan of Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, the great saintly people, what they do is they take a different type of darshan every day. They look at the world and see that it's full of disease, old age, and death. And therefore, because they're constantly seeing the suffering around them, and naturally that compassion is coming. You see, some people we say are apathetic. They don't see. People around them are suffering, they don't see. And then higher than that is if you're sympathetic. You see people suffering, but you see it from a distance. Yeah, they're suffering, they're over there, but thank God, I'm okay. But the devotee is not apathetic. The devotee is not even sympathetic. The devotee is empathetic. They see people suffering so closely that they have to do something. This terminology is very amazing. Para dukkha dukhi. It means to experience someone else's suffering as though it's your own. Imagine tomorrow you got a cut on your hand. Right? Definitely you would not be empathetic. And definitely you would not be even sympathetic. Oh, it's a cut. Anyway, it's okay. No, we would do something about it. So Srila Prabhupada embodied the highest level of compassion because he was seeing the suffering of everyone around him. His Holiness Ramai Swami says one time they drove Srila Prabhupada in Australia to a morning walk. And it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and as they got onto the highway to drive to the park, there was a huge traffic jam. So Ramai Swami, he was in the back with Srila Prabhupada. So he, in his mind, he was thinking like, thank God I escaped, this life. Being stuck in a traffic jam, going to work, I'm so fortunate. And Srila Prabhupada looked at him as he was thinking like this, and Srila Prabhupada said, why is there a traffic jam at 6 o'clock in the morning? So Ramai Swami said, because in Australia, people live so far away from where they work that they have to leave at 6 o'clock in the morning and often drive 2-3 hours to work all day, and then come back. And as soon as Srila Prabhupada heard that, Ramai Swami looked at him, and a teardrop fell from Prabhupada's eye. And he said, they're working so hard. For what? And Ramai Swami realized that's the difference between me and Srila Prabhupada. I was looking at their suffering thinking, thank God I don't have to go through that. But Srila Prabhupada was looking at their suffering and feeling that pain. So the great devotees have great compassion because number one, they're seeing the suffering of others. The second reason that the great devotees have great compassion is because they're simultaneously seeing Krishna. Because they're seeing Krishna, because they're in contact with Krishna, because they're experiencing the bliss of Krishna consciousness, they can't bear to see that someone is not having that opportunity. It's so good. I have to share it with the others. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada was just, one time he was with some members from Mensa, the IQ intelligentsia. So they were debating back and forth with Srila Prabhupada, They came up with the problem of rocks. This one? They asked Srila Prabhupada, can God create a rock so heavy that he can't lift it? This is like a philosophical conundrum. Because if you say, yes, God can create a rock so heavy he can't lift it, then there's something God can't lift. And if you say, no, God can't create a rock so heavy that he can't lift it, then there's something God can't create. So they thought they would snooker Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada looked at them and said, yes, God can create it, and then he can lift it. And they were thinking like, oh no, that doesn't... They didn't have any answer to that. Prabhupada said, yes, he can create it. So like this, they were going back and forth, so many philosophical arguments. And then at the end, Prabhupada just looked at one of the devotees and he said, Krishna is so nice. Why don't they just take him? After all those arguments, Prabhupada said, it's so nice, just take Krishna. So the pure devotees, they are seeing Krishna, and therefore they have so much compassion. They can't bear that someone else should not have that. Now our situation is that, are we seeing the suffering of the world? Maybe. But we have the tendency to kind of block it out of our mind. One philosopher, he said, I know everyone has to die, but I was hoping an exception would be made in my case. So we have like a tendency to be able to be surrounded by suffering and yet just be kind of a little bit oblivious to it, just conveniently forget about it and just get on with life. And are we seeing Krishna? Sometimes. But then we're also seeing Maya, and we're also seeing a lot of other things. And therefore, when we look at our hearts, often we don't feel that level of compassion that Srila Prabhupada had, because we're not seeing suffering like Srila Prabhupada saw it, and we're not seeing Krishna like Srila Prabhupada was seeing Krishna. So how will compassion arise in our heart? We're not seeing suffering, we're not seeing Krishna, but what we can see is Srila Prabhupada's compassion. And when we see Srila Prabhupada's compassion, then we think, I should also be a little bit compassionate. I should also help in whatever way I can. And so in this way, the devotee is becoming very kind, the devotee is becoming very compassionate, not necessarily out of realization, but the devotee is becoming compassionate because they're seeing that those who came before me were so compassionate that I should please them, and therefore I should do what I can to try to assist them in their mission. So in this way, it's a very deep day of reflection. This has happened today. We've heard the news of Krishangi Mataji who has left this world. These are the times when we have to really deeply reflect. What have I received? And then what am I doing with it? And in this way, if we deepen our gratitude, then we can experience more of what Srila Prabhupada wanted us to experience. When I joined the temple, one devotee said to me, this movement is not meant to make you believe in Krishna. I said, really? Is this guy alright? Maybe I should speak to another devotee. He said, no, we're not trying to make you believe in Krishna. So I said, what are you trying to do then? He said, we want to empower you with the process of devotional service that's so powerful that it will help you to perceive the presence of Krishna at every moment in your life. I said, all right, then that's good. I'll go for that one. That sounds amazing. Yes, we don't want to just believe in Krishna. One time, Srila Prabhupada was on a morning walk and he was asking the devotees, how do you know Krishna exists? So different devotees gave different answers. And then one devotee said, because when I chant Hare Krishna, I feel the presence of Krishna. Prabhupada said, yes, that is the right answer. Feel the presence of Krishna. But when we serve the pure devotee, then we will feel the presence of Krishna. And what better way to serve the pure devotee than to do what is closest to their heart, a heart full of compassion which wants to spread Krishna consciousness. So we must try in whatever way we can to assist. So we're so fortunate to have so many stalwart followers, so many dedicated servants of Srila Prabhupada here. They are actually the living example of this. We just came from the manor and we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda and remembering all the amazing pastimes, the transcendental pastimes of how the Lord descended in London, Srila Prabhupada's amazing Leela there. So we feel so fortunate to be part of this movement and so fortunate to be in your presence. I guess I could carry on, but maybe, I don't know, Bharati Prabhu or Shakti Prabhu, if you would like to be merciful enough to share some words with us on this day of Srila Prabhupada's. Would you like to? Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for your nice presentation. It was
I got a lot from it. And it was nice meditation to remember Srila Prabhupada coming and the culture that he left and the culture that he came into. And like you quoted him saying, I did not know if I should turn left or if I should turn right when he came down the walkway from the Jalabhuta. But still, Prabhupada, he came and he just was completely dependent on the mercy of Krishna, the guidance of Krishna, the mercy of his spiritual master. And he utilized his intelligence to try to understand the culture that he came into. And he wrote in their prayer, and I believe it was in Boston that he wrote it, that, how will I deliver this message to these people that are filled with passion and ignorance? How will they understand? Srila Prabhupada, he had so many opportunities to give up and go back. And nobody would have faulted him for doing so. He had no sponsors, he had no money. We commonly say, well, Prabhupada had 40 rupees in his pocket, but there was not a single bank in America that would trade dollars for those rupees. So he might as well have had scrap paper in his pocket because it was, practically speaking, it had no value. But Srila Prabhupada had the most valuable gift, and he wanted to give it to whomever was willing to receive. And I often contemplate that point in my own life. The Srila Prabhupada, as representative of the Guru Parampara and the previous acharyas, he wants to give each and every one of us, and not just us, but within the entire universe, he wants to give us the very topmost thing, which is to be able to, for each and every one of us to be able to enter into the sublime pleasure dance. The topmost thing within the entire spiritual world. And I often just think that I'm not unfortunate, I'm extremely fortunate, but I'm just so foolish that even though Prabhupada is wanting to give so many different gifts of immeasurable value, I just don't accept them. It's and I can't even justify why. It's just like, I'm not even conscious of it. No, I just, I'm okay. I'm very comfortable in my comfort zone, so to speak. But Srila Prabhupada doesn't give up on us. Even though we may give up on Krishna, even though we may give up on our vows, even though we may give up on our spiritual master, Krishna never gives up on us. And that is it's beyond the blessing. It is the greatest mercy that's imaginable. And even though we've said no to Krishna so many times, in so many lifetimes, but Krishna just accepts and doesn't turn it back on us. He just continually tries, very patient. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for coming. I came at the recommendation of my good wife, who is here somewhere. And anyhow, I'm very grateful that I came. I'm even more grateful that you're here. Perhaps in the future, you could come all the way over to New Vrindavan. Thank you so much.
That's not far of a walk.
That's Bhakti Marwan. Would you like? Here, you get this. But don't hold them together.
I'm not that coordinated.
No, you'll.
Srila Prabhupada's own description of his passage from Calcutta Harbor to America. There's some words in the diary that he kept, the Jaladuta diary. And there's some letters that he began to write shortly after his arrival. Not immediately, but shortly after, and reflecting upon the entire situation, what happened and how it happened, particularly that crossing, where he wasn't even sure he was going to make it to the destination. And in every situation, he said, it is only by the mercy of my spiritual master that anything has happened. He had this utter and complete loyalty and faith in his spiritual master. You mentioned how when he went on the veranda in Calcutta and met him for the first time, Prabhupada was talking to us about that, and he was telling, among my friends, I was always the leader, and we would have debates. Debates are not like arguments. They're more structured, they're more formal, they're more polite. But he would inevitably win. He always won, and therefore he was seen as the leader. And after that encounter with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he said, for the first time in my life, I was defeated, and I liked it very much. And you mentioned the fact that we shouldn't neglect the order of the spiritual master. So sometimes it was questioned why it took him so long. You mentioned 43 years. And there's so many things to ponder and consider, but in everything, timing is a great matter. Doing things the right way at the right time. One person asked Prabhupada, why did it take you so long to come? And he goes, because you were not ready yet. But he said that in a very sober way. You are not ready yet. And we can see, had he come sooner, who would have even maybe noticed in such a way? Because just like the sannyasis that went to the UK and they didn't get anything established, it's not like they were neophytes. We, on the other hand, who went, we were not even neophyte, we were like pre-neophyte. And yet, by the mercy of our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, who was depending on the mercy of his spiritual master, something was done. And we always knew to this very day it wasn't our own doing. Krishna had a plan, and Srila Prabhupada stepped in and executed that plan in so many perfect ways. I was thinking about Lord Jagannath the other day. I was reading a letter written in 1970 by Srila Prabhupada to Hanuman Prasad Pudar. A very interesting letter, and it's quite lengthy. It's worth reading. I think it's April 5th or something like that. So part of the letter, it was like a report almost. And he mentioned how in our temples, and he had given a list of the temples, that we start out with Lord Jagannath, Subhadra, and Baladev. And he said that my spiritual master recommended this for these countries. Because in another letter he had written about the tolerance of Lord Jagannath. And we could imagine how tolerant he would have to be when these kids who were dressing up as devotees were attempting to worship him, beginning so early, like in 1967. So we start out with, and then eventually Radha Krishna. And exactly like that is what happened. So sometimes it seems almost random how some things were happening, just like the appearance of Lord Jagannath. But there was nothing by chance and there was nothing random about anything Srila Prabhupada ever did. And if you step back a moment and you're looking at the situation, like sometimes we hear these stories, and that's why sometimes I'm not into telling stories. I'm not into amusing people with cute little stories about Prabhupada. I want people to connect with him, the person, Srila Prabhupada, the person that he was and is. Nothing happened by chance. And he assured us of that. One time in the UK, we were at Lennon's house. I forget the incident, but the word by chance was mentioned. And very soberly, nothing is by chance. I had a conversation with Shamsundar during those conversations about the different, maybe you've seen this book, the different philosophers were presented, and Shamsundar would present their philosophy, and then Prabhupada would comment. And so one of them, whoever it was, had a philosophy of chance. And Prabhupada so strongly and clearly defeated the idea that anything would be by chance in this world, which translates into how careful we individually and collectively must be in executing our Krishna consciousness. It's not a chance. It's for us an opportunity. It comes with a it's a word, responsibility and obligation. It's just not a social situation to get together and have some fun and Hari Bol. We're here, not by chance. We've been called by Lord Chaitanya to assist Srila Prabhupada, and it's ongoing. It didn't end when he left this world. He told us in July of '67, when he was going back to India to recover from his stroke, heart attack, whatever it was, I'm an old man, I may die at any time. I want you boys and girls to push on this movement. Even that far ago, he was admonishing, I want you boys and girls, and we were just toddlers. And yet he was willing to entrust the beginning of ISKCON with us, rather than someone else who might defile or change whatever he had taught us. And he said that much. If anybody comes and changes even one word, what I have taught you, the whole thing will be spoiled. We have an obligation, we have a responsibility to adhere very closely to how he taught us, what he taught us. Because we're filling up this little house here. Well, it's not so little, but we're filling it up. But, outside, I don't know what the current population of Columbus is, but there's a lot of folks out there. There's the entire state of Ohio. We have a responsibility and obligation. When somebody takes initiation, you're just not getting a new name. You've signed on to assist Srila Prabhupada in pushing on this movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We have some time if anyone has any questions or. Yes, Prabhu.
So, as you were talking about the
Just wait for
conversation,
the mic.
thank you for the nice class. The conversation that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was having about why somebody becomes devotee. But then we can extend that to Srila Prabhupada. Ultimately, he comes to the conclusion that it's the mercy of the devotee that. But the devotee is also equally merciful to everybody, right? He doesn't. So many came in contact with Srila Prabhupada, but not everybody took up Krishna consciousness the way somebody else took it up. Or so, still the question remains that what is it that makes the person take up Krishna consciousness? So, because the devotee is equally merciful to everybody, and he wants to spread. So, how do we understand?
Okay. So we said that Krishna is equal to all, and therefore he can't be the source of mercy, but the devotee is also equal to all. So then what's the difference? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that what happens is the devotee comes to the level of a Madhyam Adhikari. So there are three levels of devotee: Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttam. So the vision of the Uttam is that everyone's a devotee. Everyone, they see literally equally. They see everyone, in everyone they just see Krishna. But the Madhyam is described in the Bhagavatam. Ishvare tadadhineshu balisheshu dvisatsu cha prema maitri kripopeksha ya karoti samadhyama. That the Madhyama, he looks at Ishvar, Krishna, and he has prema. He looks at the tadadhineshu, the devotees, and he has maitri, he creates friendship. He sees the Bali Sheshu, the innocent, and he has kripa, compassion. And then he sees the dvisatsu, the envious, and apeksha, he avoids them. And so Srila Prabhupada explains in his purports that the Uttam comes to the level of the Madhyam and then discriminates and sees where there is receptivity, sees where there is, someone is like dry firewood. This example is also given by the acharyas that some people are like dry firewood and other people are wet. So even when they come in contact with the spark of kripa from a Vaishnava, for one it just sets them alight, whereas for other it may not seemingly do anything. So in that way, Srila Prabhupada says that the preacher is on the level of Madhyam, accepts the level of a Madhyam, but it actually is Uttam. And in that sense, as a Madhyam, they make discrimination. Okay. Oh.
Why is some dry wood and why is some wet wood?
So why are some dry and why are some wet? Because some are in London where it rains all the time. So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur he explains that Sukriti, there are different types of Sukriti. Karmanmukhi Sukriti, Jnananmukhi Sukriti, Bhakti-unmukhi Sukriti. So these are activities that one may do, sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly. But what happens is this Sukriti makes you more receptive. But it doesn't matter how much Sukriti you do, how dry you become, still you need a spark. So in that sense, Sukriti doesn't cause devotional service. But what Sukriti or piety does is it means that when the spark comes, then you're more able to take it up. And therefore, in that way, we can see that that's the reason why some come in contact with the devotee, some don't come in contact with the devotee, some come in contact, but it doesn't necessarily, and others naturally. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful class. So you mentioned a little bit about how we may not have compassion, but Srila Prabhupada has compassion and therefore we should act. Can you speak a little bit more on that, namely with regards to the effect or the benefit of executing the spiritual master's instruction in terms of a physical action, but not doing it in the mood they want you to do it, but rather in loyalty to the spiritual master? For example, preaching not because you're compassionate for the other living entities, but because you have the desire to please the spiritual master.
Of course, the desire to please the spiritual master is also very, very exalted because the spiritual master is fully carrying Krishna in their heart, and therefore, Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasadat, that by pleasing the spiritual master, you please Krishna. But yes, preaching is done on different levels. The lowest level of preaching is when one does it out of ego or insecurity, just to impress themselves on others. A higher level of above that is when one preaches, for something that they want, some fame or some recognition or some material benefit. Higher than that is when one preaches out of a sense of duty, that no, I should do because I received so much. And then higher than that is one is preaching out of love. The real preaching is when you preach out of love, out of compassion. But until we get there, yes, we do out of responsibility. But Thakur explains this, that even in our relationship with God, these four levels are there: Bhaya, Asha, Kartavya, and Prema. So even when we preach, it's like this, we can say it's on the same levels. So even if one preaches out of duty, yes, when you wake up in the morning and it's Saturday and everyone's going to go out on Sankirtan and it's raining, and one time we went on book distribution. So we were on the street. It was a very dark, cloudy, rainy day. So the Sankirtan leader, he got us all together. So I thought, okay, finally he's going to give us an inspirational talk to get us going for the day. So he got us all together and he said, the weather is bad. The town is bad. The people are bad. You are bad. I thought, oh my God, like this is for the inspiration. And then, but the books are brilliant. So it was like, okay, well, yeah, okay, that makes sense, So sometimes we don't always feel like it, sometimes we don't, but out of duty, yes, we do it. And when we do it out of duty, then we realize it's blissful. Because when you give, it makes your heart soft. You know what the Bhagavatam says? Tadasmasadam hridayam badedam yadgriyamaner harinama dhyayai. If you chant Krishna's names and your eyes don't well up with tears, your hairs don't stand up on end, and your body doesn't start shivering, the only conclusion we can come to is that your heart has become steel framed. The heart has become so hard that we're not sensitive to the beauty of Krishna. So when we go out in a spirit of compassion and we try to help others, you know what happens? Your heart becomes soft. We become sensitive again. We become less self-absorbed, less selfish. We begin to think of others. And then we begin to open our hearts to be touched by the grace of Krishna. And so, if you're suffering from the hard-heartedness of impersonalism, go out and speak to people about Krishna. You can't be impersonal. You have to become personal. And in that way, we soften our heart. So yes, even when we do it out of duty, it's still very, very beautiful and still very, very beneficial. But then later on, we'll realize it's not just a duty. Like we had another Sankirtan leader, and when we would go out, he would say like, okay everyone, work now, samadhi later. It's difficult now, but don't worry, in the future. And then we had another Sankirtan leader, and when we would go out, he would say, okay everyone, now we're going to enter into Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. And for me, that one was more inspiring. Because did you know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are going on even today? Adya piha shay lila kaha gaura roy kona kona bhagyavan dekhi balakoy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are going on even today. Kona kona bhagyavan, but you have to become fortunate. Dekhi balakoy, and then you'll be able to see. It's happening now. So in the beginning, we sometimes have to force ourselves. Like a car where the engine has become, you have to give it a bit of a push start, isn't it? Dakko start. You have to put a bit of an effort in the beginning, but then once it's running, it's running. Like the Ganga. If you ever want to swim in the Ganga, then to get in immediately is very difficult because it keeps pushing you out. But once you get to a certain point in the Ganga, there's an undercurrent. And then it's like, then you're drawn in. So in preaching, it's like that. Sometimes you just got to get yourself out there. It's a bit difficult. But then once you're in, when we used to do book distribution marathons, it was so difficult to get sometimes devotees out in the morning. But then in the evening, to get them off the street, that was even more difficult. It would sometimes take 2 hours from the spot we were distributing to get to the car, because on the way back, they'd be stopping every second person. Because once you're in, then you get absorbed. Like when you wake up, when the alarm goes off in the morning, you know, the sound of horror. But once you're up, it's like really nice. It's like, wow, so glad I woke up. So in the beginning, everything takes a little bit of, and that's when dutifulness saves us. But then later on, you'll experience the joy of it. Preaching is the only service you can do here that you can't do in the spiritual world. There's no one to preach to in the spiritual world. You can do it here.
Just now you referred to 4 stages or the 4 levels of our relationship with God, by Asha, Kartavya and Prema. Do you mind just elaborating? It's very beautifully coined, although I understand the terms, but it'll help to have some explanation.
This is described by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He says in the beginning, one is worshipping God out of fear. We even hear this often, this terminology, they were a God-fearing family. It's very nice that at least they're connecting to God and they have that reverence. But you can see that still there's a more, the focus in that relationship is that I don't want anything terrible to happen to me. So you can see where the consciousness is in that relationship is very much about me. Higher than that is asha, where one has a transactional relationship. It's said to be a little bit higher because at least someone is trying to offer something, but then they're expecting something back. One for you, two for me. So that's transactional. And higher than that, you see the selflessness is growing, because when you're dutiful, it's become more about that person than you. How much they have done, that becomes the focus. Therefore, you're giving more. And then in love, one completely loses all their selfishness, because it's just about the incredible character of that person. So if you see in this continuum, what's basically happening is becoming less and less about you, and it's becoming more and more about God or Krishna. And when and that's love. That's what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says. Krishnendriya priti icha tarebo Atmendriya priti icha tarebolикам. Krishnendriya priti icha dhare premanam. When it's about the Atma's Indriya, the satisfaction of ourselves, then it's calm, lost. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for being here. My question is just out of curiosity, maybe to see if I can gain some relatability or maybe to feel that my problems are just beginner level problems. Like the example you gave of the Ganga, that there's two currents, right? The initial one that pushes you, and the second one, the inner current, which is stronger. I feel like I'm in the beginning, the initial phase, but you are in the undercurrent. What are your biggest challenges after you've been like a seasoned spiritualist? And how do you deal with them? How do you learn from them?
They say when you answer a question, first you have to question the question. I don't know if I'm a seasoned spiritualist. Sometimes people think the day you take sannyas is the day you become a pure devotee. I wish that were true. I think we all have difficult days. We all wake up in the morning and sometimes feel a little down or a little not so enthusiastic or a little. But I think the difference is that this gratitude, that's why I talk today so much about gratitude. I don't know how much taste I have in my spiritual life, but by the association of great devotees, maybe I feel I've developed some gratitude, and I feel like that's my saving grace. Because when we have gratitude, then even sometimes we're not feeling like we want to do it, but we keep doing it because we have so much value for what we've received. So I would say that probably every single problem that you have is probably quite common amongst all of us. Sometimes desires are there, they come up. Once I was giving a talk and I just said it, I said like, yeah, and sometimes you wake up and you just feel like you want a Kit Kat. You know, Kit Kat. I just said it like, and then for the next 2 weeks, I got like 50 Kit Kats. It's just like, it was just an example, So it's very interesting when Rupa Goswami talks, he says, Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udarapasta Vegam, Etan Vegan, Yo Vishaheta Dhira, Sarvam Apimam Prithivin Shishya. He says the one qualified to make disciples all over the world is not one who doesn't have any of the pushings of the mind, the senses, the anger. It's just one who's learned to tolerate it. Even Yamunacharya, he says, since I've taken up, the lotus feet of Krishna, even when the thought of enjoying the opposite gender comes, then I spit on the thought and my lips curl in distaste. But he's saying it still comes. So everyone will have those days, But let us deepen our gratitude when we hear from the devotees, when we absorb their gratitude, then our own gratitude grows. I don't know if that helps.
I also like to have Kit Kats.
Would you like to?
Just want to ask, how did your, if you don't mind sharing, how did your journey begin in Krishna consciousness, and what helped you to conclude to fully surrender the rest of your life to Guru Parampara?
That one's still a work in progress. What can I say? I'm a very average person. I grew up. My parents came to India came to London in the 70s. So naturally, they were going to all the temples, and then I was born in 1981, so I had the opportunity to come to Bhaktivedanta Mana since my birth by Krishna's grace. And then maybe all those years in my youth, hearing kirtans and things. And then when I was 15, I just had questions of life. I kind of looked at a world in which I didn't really resonate with what people were looking for. I didn't really resonate with the goals that people had and what people thought success was. But then I was thinking, I got to do something with my life. If I'm not going to do all these things, what am I going to do? So I guess then I began searching, is there anything else to do? And so when I was 15, I began reading different spiritual books. And of course, I had grown up in a Hindu family, but I'd never read the Bhagavad Gita. It just remained as it is on the bookshelf. Part of the decoration. But then what happened is I went to the library and I got 2 versions of the Bhagavad Gita out. But they were, like very flowery, very like, it didn't really make any sense to me. And then I opened Srila Prabhupada's Gita. And if I'm totally honest with you, I opened Prabhupada's Gita when I was 15. And it was a very mystical experience, but not for the reason you might think. I opened it and I tell you, I didn't understand anything. But it was amazing because I didn't understand anything, but I read it and I still had a deep feeling that this is amazing. I just don't get it. It was like, I've never read a book like that. Like normally when you don't understand it, you're just like, what is this book? Let's read another book. But this one, I didn't understand it. I was like, no, this definitely. So then at 15, I started going into the temple and asking devotees questions. I had one question and I was convinced nobody could answer it. I was like, nobody can answer this question. You know what it was? I had this question as a kid, like, if there's one God, why is there so many religions? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I was convinced no one could answer this question. I went to the manor and then I met one of the brahmacharis. Anyway, he just answered it perfectly. I was like, these guys are wise, they got an answer for everything. So then, 15, 16, then I joined the youth group, then I went to university. University was an interesting time because I saw 2 different approaches to life. I was living in just off Tottenham Court Road, so I was behind Soho Temple, ISKCON London. So it's kind of like, what to say, one night in the nightclub, and then straight from the nightclub to Mangalarati. Both places of dancing, different types of dancing. So it's very interesting. I was seeing two different ways of approaching life. And then I remember one day I was at some university function and I just had this strong realization. I even remember it to this day. Sometimes it still gives me chills when I remember it. I just had this strong realization one day that everything here is so superficial. It's just not real. No one's being real. And then after that, what could I do? That was you just couldn't enjoy it anymore, as much as you tried. And then you take up Krishna consciousness and then you can't leave. It's like joining the mafia. You know too much, You can't leave. So then, I went through. At 19, I didn't have so much motivation for studies. But the devotees told me, no, you should finish. And then at 21, what to do? I did the unthinkable in the eyes of my parents. They made a great sacrifice. And I told them, no, I'm going to India. I need to find myself. So then I went to India for 6 months. And then basically then I joined as a monk at Bhaktivedanta Manor. And then 1 year became 5, 10, 20. So still trying. Everyone has their own path. So many names. I was thinking the other day, I was born as Sandeep, and then later on they call me Bhakta Sandeep, and then later on I was Sutapa Das. Nowadays they call you a Swami. What's in the name? Behind it all is just the soul trying to find Krishna. So, yeah, like I was saying here, I think we're all in the same boat, basically. And it's a beautiful opportunity to help each other, and yeah, maybe we can inspire each other in different ways. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. Yeah, there's the small little story of my life. Not so impressive, but trying.
Thank you, Maharaj. Beautiful class. It was so fortunate for us to be here in your presence. So, you talked about different themes: mercy, gratitude, compassion. So, in the mood of Srila Prabhupada's compassion, para dukha dukhi, as devotees, sometimes we come across people who are suffering a lot, but they don't recognize they are suffering. And we feel a lot of compassion for them that they are going through so much, but they don't even have insight. How do we approach such people? They're not really looking for answers from you, but they are there in your life in some relationship, either as colleagues or as patients, in some way or the other. So, how do you help these patients? How do you help these people who are in your life suffering? You feel compassion, but they're not really asking for that kind of help. They are there for some other reason.
Yeah. Every soul has free will. Every soul, like Bhakti Prabhu was saying that, Srila Prabhupada said you weren't ready. So every soul will have to utilize their free will and be ready. Even Krishna says to Arjuna at the end of the Gita, Yat ichha tatha kuru. I've given you the knowledge, now you do what you want to do. You can take the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I think if you're just friends with people, if you just be kind, just be a good example. Francis of Assisi, he says, I preach all day. I preach 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I'm preaching all the time. And now and again I say something. They say your character is speaking so loud I can't hear your words. Actually, if you're just a good example, if you're inspired, His Grace Hari Sauri Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada said to him, preaching is easy business. Just show people how happy you are. So if you're happy, and that's what I heard someone saying that at the airport the other day, and that's why it's in my mind. Yeah, if you're happy and you know it, if you're happy, people naturally will gravitate towards you. They'll open up. If they trust you, if they're inspired by you, those are the two qualities, then people will open their heart to you. And when they open their heart to you, then you can give them something. But if you try to force it, the heavens were thinking, how can we get this guy to take his coat off? So then the heavens arranged the wind. The wind blew like anything to try and blow his coat off. And as the wind blew heavier and heavier, the man started holding on tighter and tighter. And then the heaven thought, let me do it in a different way. And the weather changed, the clouds dispersed, the sun came out. Effulged, and the sun just shone on him. And he kind of went like, oh, it's a bit hot, And he just opened up. So sometimes we think preaching is like, some kind of, give the answers, give the tattva, give the siddhanta, as is. And of course, there are times and places when we have to. But for most people, if we're expert, we'll write for the right time. So be a good friend, always be there, be a good example. Yad yad acharati shreshtas. People will follow your example. I guess there are many things to say, but this is what initially came to my mind in answer to your question. I see hands. I don't know how we're doing. Maybe we should. Yeah, I think. We may have to stop. I'm sorry. My apologies. Because I think, and we also want to respect everyone's time. Yes.
You mentioned those white pointy shoes.
Oh, yes.
He wears a grayish overcoat and pointed rubber shoes. His right hand holds his prayer reeds. He has no time to lose, though many look upon him as an ordinary man. The master of the universe has got the perfect plan.
Vivo.
There's more, but it was written by a devotee named Devananda Pandit in New Vrindavan, about Prabhupada's arrival in New York.
Very nice. Thanks for sharing. So thank you so much, everyone. It's such an honor to be with all of you. And we hope to have more and more of your association. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much, devotees. We have Maharaj's books, we have Tattva and Receptivity. It's $12 each. We can get your book signed, or you can pay by Zelle to ISKCON Columbus. Just remember to put in the subject line Keshava Maharaj's books so we can keep track. Thank you all. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Tomorrow, Maharaj is also giving the Srimad Bhagavatam class at the temple. And please attend.
7:30.
7:45.
If you say 7:30, that becomes 7:45.
That's Indian Standard Time.